Hey guys, hello and welcome to another episode of What Does It Mean to Be Human? And as always, I'm Ron Saylor, the creative warrior, joined by my good mate Ben Gare.
Hello.
And this podcast is about meaning, life, and everything, right? Where we just talk about whatever comes up. Sometimes, we just make it up. Other times,
Sometimes.
Okay, every time we make it up. We're just two blokes having a chat about what it means to be human as professionals and in our personal day-to-day. And today we're going to kick off the show with, probably just a quick check-in, see where we're at and see where it takes us. So we hope you're all well and living your life at your full potential, connected to your hearts and connected to yourselves and connected to those around you in the world. And you're living the life that you love, because essentially for me, that's what it comes down to, live the life you love and always come from a place that's going to support you doing that. So with that said, Ben, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah, we're having a bit of a chat before here, and there's not a lot because often we go off what is happening in our personal life, gives us sort of an intro to where we begin to share from that sort of space, and what we've been kind of dealing with the week kind of gives us the setup for what we're going to dive into sort of that episode. And today both of us are like, no, we're kind of okay, we're in an okay spot, and it starts to be go, all right, well, where do we share? Because again, it's often life gives you the feedback of what's there and what's necessary and what's in wanting to be looked at, So, when there's not something specific or a trend we're starting to see in our clients or in stuff like that, it starts to be okay. Well, this is kind of where we'd love sort of interactive feedback of how stuff you'd like to hear from us, So. That's kind of what's going on in the background for where we go here. So this could be an interesting one, but have you got anything to add to that, Ron?
Well, look, while you were sharing, what kind of came to mind is I've actually had quite a few conversations this week, and those conversations have been kind of deep and deeper than normal, right? And this is with clients, family members, friends. So it's been more than about 3 or 4 of them. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, what's been the most, prevalent thought process this week? And that's what kind of comes to mind. And a lot of it has been around this sense of awareness of where people are at. And it kind of like takes the narrative of the last 2 years with what's happened and how, we've all been affected on some level, whether it's been financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, on some level, we've all been affected. And kind of hearing conversations of how people are feeling physically right now, where they're in their life, in business or in themselves, relationships. And I sense there's this sense of positivity, right? And it just seems like people seem to have more awareness around, what's occurred. And, I don't want to go into any kind of particular topics around the last 2 years. I think we're all pretty up to date with what's occurred and how it's affected us. But I think what's relevant is our conversations and our language around what occurs and how we kind of navigate our way through that. And it's always easy, I find, even for myself, it's always easy to complain about stuff. And when I complain about stuff, I seem to just attract other complainers, and they just kind of like validate where I'm coming from. And then when I'm in a place where I'm not complaining, then I seem to attract those that are in a place where they're not complaining, and it kind of validates that place. There's no in either. It's just where you are in that time and place, right? It's all relevant. But what I noticed over the last week with these conversations was that it's kind of weird. It kind of felt like people had more sense of accountability for themselves and what they want to create in their life and where they are and what they want to do. And I was thinking, and it's only like now since we just started talking, like what's been happening, and just while you were sharing, that kind of came to mind as well. This is what's been happening kind of in my week, in my world. So I think it's a clear sign of where I'm at, and the space I'm able to hold for people to go into that space to, want to share a little bit more than just the surface level. How you going? What's happening? What did you do on the weekend? All this sort of stuff, but kind of delve into like where are you actually at, and what are your triggers, and what are you doing? Like, what are some of the things you're doing to create the wealth in your life, and not only just mean financial wealth. When I say the word wealth, like wealth to me is all about health and well-being as well. Creating abundance, finding that place where you ground into yourself, into the earth, and you take that step, and every step counts, right? It's like, when I work with my clients as an example in the gym, right? And a lot of them are used to counting reps, and a lot of us are. That's all we can kind of do, let's count the 12 reps and we'll do 3 of those. And like I say to the people I train, it's just, I don't care how many reps you do. All I care is that each one is done with the same purpose and awareness. And you may get to 12, you may get to 15. As long as you have good form, good technique, good rhythm and power, we just keep going. And then we kind of base it on what we need after that. And that's what I've been feeling, is like if people are a bit more anchored. And it's possibly a reflection of where I'm at, right? No doubt, because I'll attract that into my life wherever I am. But I think that's been a really nice thing to see over the last week.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, thought creates reality. So, and this goes for not just observing your interactions around you or life, but this goes into our deeper psychology of like what we believe we create, and what we think we are actively creating constantly. So that's why we do the work we do, because it's obviously we've got to clean out that backlog of both past and present, because as you've probably heard if you've listened to a couple of our talks before, that we come from the world that it starts quite in early childhood, and these beliefs that you anchor in place at that time keep resurfacing. So constant patterns that you see in your life, like it's like, why do I always sabotage money or relationships or something like that? So along those lines, the story that you kind of keep popping up, it's because it's wanting to be healed in our understanding and our reality. So it's like it keeps resurfacing because it's like it's an undealt with unconscious program. So by doing the work of kind of going deeply into the unconscious, you can start to unravel it being the driving pattern that you see the world through that lens anymore. So it's yeah, if just say why do I always sabotage money? I've got a really good job and all this kind of stuff. Well, if you grew up sort of not having a lot of money, you could see that money is not a good thing. So therefore you sabotage it, and therefore you can't hold on to as much as you maybe think you deserve. So we often take these little kind of reflections of the external world are reflections of your internal world, so what you're believing. So obviously, yeah, you can do daily maintenance where it's just like meditation and slowing down and catching beliefs and changing pattern interrupts, things like that, which we've talked about on the channel before as well. But yeah, the daily is good to do sort of continual maintenance, but at some point too, you need to go diving into the bigger pool of why do those things even come up? It's like they're coming up to show you something, to point you in a certain sort of direction of where the next level of healing is needed in your reality. And this is why, again, I think we've talked about it before. It's like this healing journey is a continual process of being aware, coming into yourself, into your body, into your center, and observing the world that you live in through that. Oh, what's it trying to show me? Where's it trying to take me? And it's so easy to get on these little habitual pattern loops of I can't, or this is like clouding me see the positive in the world, because it's like again, if you're in that downward spiral or that sort of negative place, that's the reality that's you're going to see more often. So it's really important to start to change that. And again, pattern interrupt and things like that will just go, hey, hang on, it's okay. You know, it's not as bad as maybe I'm thinking. And then you can actually start to see, yeah, you attract more positive people around you, or more positive experiences that again seem random or whatever. But it's because you're changing your internal world, and the external world is sort of catching up to reflect back to you your new reality. That's my understanding of sort of how things are going anyway. Anything to pick up on there, man?
What I got out of that, there was one thing you talked about, how our internal thought process based on our belief patterns that we develop as kids, right? How they keep popping up, wanting to say hello. It's like, you know, I'm still here, right? And the vision I had when you said that was, it's like, I mean, let's just take relationships as an example. And I know I was guilty of that for a long time, right? Where, let's say it wasn't going as well as I wanted it to go. So the easy option was to, well, I just got to find another girlfriend. I've got to find, you know, someone else. So, you know, and so I could never fully commit to a relationship. And it was easier to go be with someone else because it was fresh and it was different. And in that psychology, I'm thinking, well, this is it, right? This is much better. I'm not triggered. You know, I'm more myself. I can be me. And then 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the track, what happens? All that stuff, which I just don't want to look at or just ignore, starts to come up because, you know, what they call that honeymoon period, whatever, starts to, you know, fade. And then I start to see things that I don't like, and then it starts triggering. And the other classic example is, you know, you change jobs or you change geography. At the end of the day, I guess the sharing here is that we can always try and manage the symptom. And the symptom can be where we just change things in our lives on the surface level, where it could be we're just going to change our job or change our partner or even change the city we live in, right? Even change countries. Some people go to that extent. But have we addressed the mechanism or the trigger or the stimulus as to why we need to change? You know, what are we addressing here? And I think a lot of us do live on that surface level. It's really symptom based. We kind of just working with the symptom, or we kind of ignore it. But at some point, it's going to rear its head on some level. And that's where we talk about, you know, taking responsibility and being accountable for yourself as a healer. When I say healer, whether you're a practitioner or not, just as a human being, right? We all have that innate healing ability. Our bodies have that. Our spirit has that. Energetically, we have that. It's just acknowledging that and tapping into it and saying, yeah, it's real. Whether you believe in that or not, the body has this ability to create and look after us. And we talk about awareness. I talk about awareness a lot as the first key to delving into any of this sort of stuff. Before you even start to go deep into, so-called wounds or trauma or belief patterns, you need to start having awareness of simple things like, breathing. How do you breathe throughout the day? How are your reactions? What are your thought processes? How do you feel about yourself? Are you making yourself feel bad about something, or you're giving yourself a guilt trip? Or this expectation that we always put on ourselves before others even put anything on us. So that's what I got out of what you were sharing, man. So that was really good, mate. So that's my add-on to what you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, the so many sort of things in there as well that it's like, yeah, I've been traveling pretty much solidly for about 10 years, and in the last year, because of lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, it's like the first time I haven't traveled in so long. I think up until this last year, I don't think it was more than 6 weeks I was ever in one place for, and that could be country, places in the world, here, going to another state or something like that, or traveling somewhere. And, you know, in the back of my mind and going, there's going to be something that I'm missing, like the constant stimulation, you know. While there's healing within the traveling as well, because I'm constantly on the growth edge of like, I need to step up to a new place, a new thing. I need to think differently. I need to be open to meeting people and having the experience live and sort of constantly adapting and changing and looking at what's coming up for me in those moments. But yeah, so what I mean by sort of sharing all that is like, there can be positives and negatives in everything. You know, it's like, even if we take food and diets, like seriously restrictive diets, or any kind of habit that's continuously rigid in one way. I suppose exercise and stuff like that could be part of it as well. But it's just like, yeah, if you're so rigidly like vegan or something like that, are you actually listening to the body and what it's craving and needing? This is a conversation that I've actually had in the last kind of day or two. Someone said they've been vegan for 6 years and just constantly feeling like they were unwell and hungry and nutrient deficient, you know, and started to sort of introduce meat back into their diet. So it was kind of, that's what we should be doing. We should be sort of responding to life and what we're feeling and what's going on for us, rather than rigidly holding one idea, because again, there can be positives and negatives to everything. Like, yeah, this person shared that it was like in the beginning, it felt fantastic, body felt clear, cleansed, lots of energy, really great. And then as just time started to wear on, not feeling the same way anymore and starting to feel depleted and deficient. And so, yeah, as much as sharing my experience with travel and that sort of, and that's a lot, you know, it's a lot to be processing new places and getting on planes every 2 seconds and traveling and teaching, and it's integration time as well, you know. So I've very much taken the last year as, okay, what to take my life to the next level, to start to implement new things. I'm going to use this experience of stillness and not being able to travel and the uncertainty of where the world is at the moment to gather new skills, so that if and when I go back out there, I've integrated what it is both to be that busy and to be less busy, you know. So it's yeah, it's about listening to what I need and taking the information that I've got, whether I'm in control of that or not is irrelevant, because obviously I'm not in control of the story that I can't go anywhere. So or haven't been in a lot of the period of time, because I wasn't even in Australia when it started. So rather than complain about it, it's like, I am here. Okay, so what information have I got to be with to make my future experience better within that reality? So.
Yeah. Good share, mate. I think that's important. What I got out of what you were saying is the importance of the negative and the positives in those things, that the actions that we take, whether we're aware of them or not. Or, I mean, you've been aware of your travel, and now you've been here for the last year or so, grounded in Australia, and taking that time to integrate your journey and taking that time to grow and learn and manifest and create things that you want in your life. One place, right? I was going to say there was something else something that came to me while you were sharing. Yeah, that's right. So for me, I've always believed this: 3 things, right? That take us on a journey well beyond our means. They really challenge us beyond what we know, you know. And I think the term spiritual enlightenment is probably too wanky. You know, I don't think Well, personally, enlightenment is awareness of where you're at and knowing who you are and taking ultimate responsibility for yourself. To me, that's what enlightenment means. And we're all on a journey towards that. And I feel there are certain things that accelerate that process. And I've always been a firm believer that traveling on your own around the world is definitely one of those, because it really, and I've done some traveling on my own, and I'll tell you what, it really challenges you to be who you are, especially when you're on your own. When you travel with friends, partners, and groups, it's too easy to get distracted in there, and you don't have to go out. You're always in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Travel on your own, and there is no comfort zone.
Yeah.
You really need to go deep into that. And it's a great way to bring awareness into yourself and start to see belief patterns, triggers, all this sort of worth stuff, good enough, power stuff, whatever it may be, right? So I've always been an advocate and firm believer that traveling on your own is one way to accelerate the growth process. Another way to accelerate the growth process is to do personal development, like really just delve into it and send yourself down the spiral and come back up and start to learn how to look after yourself and be aware of what happens and what you can control, what you can't control, what you unconsciously are doing, what you're consciously doing, and all that sort of stuff. Whether you read books, do courses, workshops, become a facilitator, whatever, any sort of personal development. And finally, the third one I truly believe is an accelerator is when you have kids. And I think having kids really challenge adults to look beyond their own shed, because kids, I think, always just put it in your face. And if you're willing to go beyond you and what you think you are and what your child is, and you step into the learning around what you can learn about yourself from your children, then to me, that's another great accelerator. So they've always sort of those three things. I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that, Ben, whether you've got something else different to that or similar.
Business is definitely another one. Starting your own business or trying to navigate that whole world of, putting yourself out there for something you've created, because that's definitely, and just I would have probably said relationships in general are probably one of the big accelerators. Sort of when you were talking about relationship before and changing, and I've been in sexuality for pretty much 18 odd years now, and seen a lot of that world and been polyamorous and around a lot of that kind of community. And for me, this is where there's a big detriment in some of that world. I haven't seen a lot of examples where polyamory has been a healthy sort of outcome that wasn't based in a wound or in a trauma or something else, because a lot of sexual abuse, people kind of go to polyamory as a great way of sort of expressing what they feel is a more authentic version of self, but can have some shadows in the background on why you're even attracted to that in the first place. Often a reaction to any kind of trauma is polarity in excesses of that thing. So sexual abuse often someone goes frigid or less interested in sex or hypersexual as a way of expressing that energy. It's again, it's what we believe or what we perceive, we create the reality around. So often untreated sexual abuse can have someone act out those kinds of ways. And that's why I think there can be a pretty big shadow in the Tantra world where that is the reality. That, once that sort of honeymoon glow starts to dim, it's like, well, there's the next person or the next relationship or this constant kind of simulation, like I said, and it's pardon me. I haven't had the pleasure of the kids' journey yet. It's definitely something that I would like to see in the future. And I haven't been around enough kids, but I can totally appreciate and understand it, and think that would be definitely a huge learning curve. but yeah, just relationships in general. I think it's like, yeah, being obviously those that you love see beyond just the face you show the world. You know, they see the goods and the bads to their nth degree more than anybody else will ever understand or see in general waking world life. And they have partners always have that unique ability to push the right button that is going to drive your pre-programmed story to its limits. And it's often just coming from love, you know, but it's misinterpreted as like you're actually being seen or being vulnerable or being held to such a deep degree that it's uncomfortable, because that's often a rare experience in our reality. Yeah, relationships for sure, biggie. Travel, I'm a huge advocate for travel. I'm mega shy generally. Was pretty much why I started traveling on my own at 18. I traveled a fair bit growing up, but 18, I was gifted a trip to Europe, and because I was so cripplingly shy, like at that sort of age, I went to all boys Catholic high school and stuff like that, where I felt quite stunted in my integration of knowing all aspects of life, because it's only a Catholic boys school. It was giving me a lens of I was only interacting with guys mostly. We didn't have a sister school, stuff like that. So I didn't really get that healthy, rounded experience of growing up around teenage girls to know the goods or the bads or any of that story in there of whether that's, I felt missing a part of life, and traveling, and especially being in countries where they didn't speak English, and I had to get out of my little comfort zone and speak to people and try and muddle my way through kind of conversations and stuff. And this was obviously all before the internet was in your pocket every minute of every day, you know, and you had to, if you wanted to know where was the next place to go, or where was the next place to see or things, you had to just chat to people. And I got really good at sort of having very random conversations. People are like, why are you doing it? You just got to walk up to someone and start talking to them. I'm like, well, yeah, because what else is there, you know? So that was a great way of challenging. And I've pretty much done most of my travel on my own. I've done 70 odd countries and very random experiences. So I highly recommend, if that's something you've never done, it's a great way. And again, I know it's travel. I've seen travel change in that 20 years of what it is now to what it was when the internet wasn't so prevalent. Like the beauty of the ease of being able to book a trip with a button and click on it, and I'm there, and I get my transport from one place to another, and not interact locally with the environment or the people or the things, or, you know, don't use Google Translate, don't, you know, like, yeah, obviously there's times when that's just like really easy and necessary, but yeah, that challenging of what is it like to live like the world, because all evolution has come to this point. Like, technology is less part of the human experience than anything else, because it's relatively new in the 12,000 years of human evolution getting us to this point. Yeah, I highly recommend sort of getting back to the basics of what does it look like to be on that edge of like no comprehension, and then that really hones the ability to trust self and navigate life from that place of like, I feel like I'm drawn over here, or I feel like I'm doing this, or I need to speak to this person, or yeah, and that's when life can get kind of pretty, yeah, there's some interesting stuff out there when you start to live from that place. So yeah, that's a bit of my observation in those sorts of points there.
Yeah, nice, man. And just to be clear, I don't have kids myself at all. That experience is mainly based on my experience working with parents over the years, and the stories that I've heard, And it's just, that's really just my own intuition around that. But yeah, relationships in general, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think important for me to be clear is, you know, when you're in a long-term relationship and your partner is also on the same page, sometimes it can be challenging, other times it's quite rewarding because you're both willing to go to those places that, you know, not many people want to, because you're exploring deep in yourself, and then that's going to have something come up with, you know, with your partner, and then you, as individuals that you're exploring, and then as a unit you're exploring.
Mm.
And, you know, relationships, I'm sure we could probably do a podcast on relationships at some point.
For sure.
Not today though, but I think what I would touch on, there's certain different kinds of relationships, you know. From my experience and training, there's so if I was to touch on, like, a healthy relationship is two people. So like if there were two circles and they just come and meet as two individual powerful beings, you know, this is a strong person, this is a strong person. They're not trying to overtake the relationship, nor are they trying to be, you know, like a codependent and trying to, you know, give me, let me save you, you can save me sort of stuff. Nor are they trying to run away. You know, there are some relationships with people very distant, and you're always trying to chase them, and they're always trying to run away. So it's not that often you can find a partner that sits in their power, and we don't always sit in our power, right? We will always kind of ebb and flow. But the key thing is having that awareness around that ebb and flow, and not always coming back to your center, because in your center you're probably the most powerful creator possible. So yeah, that's yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what I've got to say on that. I think with the growth, but traveling for sure. What I wanted to say with the traveling, what I used to love, Ben, was going to those more, like, you know, what they call third world countries, and really getting with the people, and, you know, getting a third class train ticket and just sitting with the locals, you know, and, you know, I'd be the only non-local in the cabin, right? But I used to thrive on that. And some of them, well, like most of them couldn't speak English, but you'd get you know, every one or two that could, and they'd be very excited and almost like curious as to why are you hanging out with locals? Why aren't you in first class? Because first class only like $5 Australian, right? But it wasn't the point of like what class you're in for me. You know, for me, I wanted to really just tune into the land, tune into the people, right? Like, you know, really tune into myself to see what my challenges were. Like, you know, what are the things that are really going to challenge me here? You know, what sort of self-worth is going to come up for me? What sort of like belief patterns are going to come up? And, you know, I wasn't always a powerful individual. Like, there were times where I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing, man? I should have just got first class. I could have been on my own. You know, why am I here? And, you know, so it was challenging at times, and it wasn't always a smooth ride, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see what my limits were and understand what my triggers were. And that's, yeah, I totally am an advocate for traveling. I think whether you travel with your partner or not, you're always going to, even traveling, I know when I travel with my wife, you know, shit still comes up. You know, you still journey and all that sort of stuff, but when you're on your own, you don't have anyone to turn to when you're feeling lonely. You just got yourself, and you go and make friends, or you just sit with it and you go, okay, what's happening for me, and just that process. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we can definitely do.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything specific in there. Yeah, I can definitely see relationships is a whole subject on its own. Even sort of touching on the tantra stuff, I was kind of aware that, yeah, that could just go on forever. That seems to be the reality I've been in the last week. Sort of a lot of sort of talk about sexuality and relationship and stuff like that. So yeah, that's been my awareness. But yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what I meant. But in terms of travel, it's what I meant by, you know, like, I'm definitely not the, like, go to the tourist attractions kind of traveler, you know, and I've been to a lot of sort of places. It's once you get off that sort of beaten track and the into the unknown of both yourself and the world, you know, it's easy. And then again, this is what I've seen by my years of traveling. It's just like, I often used to stay in a lot of hostels and things like that because it was a great way to meet more people. Like when you have a sort of more manicured holiday experience, you're kind of in the hotel and not really seeing too much of stuff. And I even saw the hostel experience change. You know, sort of every single person had a tablet and they'd be in the rec room just watching their own thing. You know, 20 people watching individual screens of like yeah, it was kind of when 10 years before that, it would have been a little hub of people meeting. Oh, where's this cool place to go? Or what's this cool thing to do? And having a few beers and whatever. And it was, yeah, very much that experience. So yeah, I'm definitely a big advocate for the more explorative travel that where you're really outside there, and that there's a time and place for everything. Like all of it, you know, sometimes you need a break and you need to get away and have that lap of luxury sometimes. But yeah, if it's sustained long-term travel, it is very much well worth it to get off the normal track and start to see what, again, the feedback life is trying to show you and what things are.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. You know, at some point, I would actually get the shits with people like staying in like dorms. And as I was getting older, I was like, you know what, I actually want my own space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now it's very much like that. Yeah, in the beginning, it was.
Yeah, because I mean, it comes down to, I mean, like just knowing who you are and knowing what you want. And I just found I was still social, interactive, but there were times I just really wanted my own space, and I actually was happy to have my own space too. So there's a lot of different ways. I think we've covered, we've just made it up today having a conversation. I think definitely we could go deeper into relationships and even into what you were talking, Ben, about the Tantra stuff and how that affects relationships. Maybe a topic we can cover in the next podcast or two. Yep. So how about we leave it there for today? And
sounds good.
We want to thank you all for joining in again. Thanks for listening to myself and Ben, two blokes just having a chat. Always open to any conversation, any discussion, any ideas that you may have. Just put them in the comments, let us know, and we'll be happy to have a chat about it. So until then, until next time, stay well, stay safe, stay connected, and we'll see you soon.
Cool. Enjoy your ride, guys.
See ya.